I used to be very frustrated with this car because it's time for yet another Miata comparison. Today we have two ND3s. This is a 2025 Mazda Miata Sport, that's the lowest trim you can buy, against my ND3 Club with the Brembo BBS Recaro package. That is the enthusiast trim, if you will, one step below the Grand Touring, but it offers you the BBR package if you want it. So we're comparing a couple things today. First of all, low budget versus high budget. Both of these are modified. You can find the full mod list as always down in the description. This Sport, all in, is about $35,000. And my Club all-in is about $44,000. But out of those mods, the one that I'm most interested in is that my Club has coilovers, whereas this Sport doesn't have coilovers. It's stock suspension, but it has a front sway bar. Although you do have to keep in mind that the Sport has some things that are different from the Club stock for stock. So as an example, the Sport doesn't have the Bilstein dampers that the Club comes with from factory. The Sport also has an open diff in the back. Now, if you go with Club or GT, you get an LSD in the back with a manual transmission. With autos, since they know that people who buy Miatas with an auto aren't really driving enthusiasts, they give them an open diff for the Club and the GT. But on the Sport, regardless of whether you get a manual or an automatic, you get only an open diff in the back. Now, in terms of mods on the car, I have Tecna Coilovers with sport springs. That's 8K front, 4K rear. I have -2 degrees of camber in the front, -1.8 in the rear, with about 6 to 6.5 degrees of caster in the front. Not quite as high as I want, but when I get the offset knuckle bushings, we'll be able to dial up both camber and caster. We have Konig Hypergram 17x8 wheels wrapped in Falken RT615K plus tires and a 215 section width, G-Loc R10 and R8 pads front to rear with MiataSpeed stainless steel lines. We have Castrol SRF fluid, although I did just come back from Laguna Seca and it looks like I need to change my brake fluid already. Pedal's getting a little bit soft. Also have the Blackbird roll bar and this 330mm aftermarket wheel. It's also a little bit thicker than stock. I'm gonna turn traction off. Now you don't want to use the DSC mode when you've modified your brakes because DSC does actually drag the inner rear caliper. And let me tell you, these Techna Coilovers from Supermiata have made a huge difference over stock. You've got to remember that the Miata is tuned from factory to be very compliant, soft, comfortable, because they want it to be, first of all, enjoyable on a bumpy canyon road, but their philosophy is that you want to feel the body motion, which I personally disagree with because it takes more time to set with the stock suspension, and now I'm getting more immediacy with my inputs and what the car is doing. It listens to my inputs much more readily. I'm still getting a bit of body roll though. Now in terms of the actual dampers, I'm at 5 away from stiffness in the front and 10 away from stiffness in the rear. Still getting a bit of lean. I do want to add sway bars now, but the thing is most people want to add sway bars first because there's a lot of body roll. Let me give you a pull. "181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque from a 2-liter naturally aspirated inline-4. It's the same engine throughout the Miata lineup, Sport, Club, and Grand Touring. It's a very smooth engine, effortlessly revs. So going back to the suspension, a lot of people want to add sway bars because the suspension is too soft from factory. But here's the issue. If you get stiffer sway bars, you're going to have the front end be really immediate, but it removes the independence of the right and left wheels. And that's going to cause several issues. So first of all, ride comfort is compromised because when you go over a bump, bumps are not symmetric. You don't go over a bump equally right and left tires, right? And you need to have independence across each wheel for the best ride quality. So that's number one. Number two is that the same thing applies mid-corner as you're driving fast. A bump can now more readily upset the car because, again, the right and left side are not acting independently. And then number three, sure, you're addressing body roll, but you're not addressing dive and squat. Oh, beautiful. Oh yes, getting just that little bit of rotation with the LSD. You do have to chuck the car a little bit and be rough with it, because you don't have enough power and torque to light up the rear tires to get that rotation just with throttle input, so you have to be mindful of the weight transfer too. Love the steering on these ND3s. Such precision, you get good feedback, good mid-corner load up. It's a little bit, it could be better if I dial up the caster, that's for sure, but these RT615K plus tires, they're actually slightly stretched because they're 215 on a 17x8. And the reason I didn't go wider, I could do a 235, but now you're gonna have a lot more slosh to the actual sidewall. And then a 225, you get those in a 45, not a 40, and I didn't want the extra sidewall. So steering feedback will change based on the tires you're using, and especially how stiff the sidewalls are. Now these are not super stiff sidewall tires. If I had Hankook RS4s, I'd get a lot more feedback through the wheel. And you also want to be mindful of the width of the tire on top of the rim. How stretched out is it? But there is a reason Miatas are loved. They just get the fundamentals totally right. Front engine, rear wheel drive, lightweight, double wishbone front, multi-link rear. Great steering, great inputs. The gear shift just feels so precise. It's exactly what you want in a car like this. It actually feels more expensive. This is, I would argue, the best manual transmission sub 60K. And yes, I do think it's better than the Civic Type R and Acura Integra Type S by a substantial margin, because it is a direct connection to the transmission. It's not cable. And where else are you getting a car that weighs only 2,300 pounds? Now, by the way, between the Sport and the Club, I think the Club is technically like 30 pounds lighter. Are you going to feel that driving? Absolutely not. But if you do want the lightest weight Miata, and weight is your #1 priority, the Sport is actually a little bit lighter than the Club. I used to be very frustrated with this car because the suspension I felt was always holding it back, especially with the Sport springs. You can get the Touring springs, or the GT springs I should say, and I think they're 6K, 3K if I'm not mistaken, and these are 8.4. I feel like you still have a beautiful balance where it's comfortable enough on the road, it's sporty and responsive, and then when you go to track, you're not constantly frustrated by the car like I previously was. You can watch my prior track days with the stock suspension at Sonoma Raceway. There's 2 videos there linked below. It was frustrating. And now I took this to Laguna. You can find that video coming out soon, also linked below. It's just so much more responsive. It is so much more willing to behave in the way that I want it to. But I'm curious, how much do front sway bars actually change the immediacy and the sharpness of the front end? And that's what we're gonna find out right now. In terms of the mods on this ND3 Sport, we have 16x7 Anki comp wheels wrapped in Bridgestone RE71 RS tires and a 195 section width, Goodwin Racing Roadster Sport 27mm front sway bar with locking collars, a front subframe reinforcement kit. I actually need that on my ND3 as well. Goodwin Racing Roadster Sport front strut X brace in red, because the Sport does not have that from factory like the Club and the GT do. Cobalt axle back exhaust. And I want to draw your attention to a couple things. There's no shark fin. There's a shark fin on mine. There's no shark fin here because they do not have sat nav on the Sports. There's also no side skirt or lip like there is on the Club with the BBR package. And we have more sidewall here because we're running 16-inch wheels rather than 17s on mine. The interior is familiar, but there are a few differences you'll notice. Number one, this normally has hard plastic everywhere, and the owner spent about $1,000 modifying it such that he redid the boot cover, the gear shift, and this material, this Alcantara on the doors as well as Alcantara here. So it's about $500 for the doors, $500 for the stuff in the center. Normally there's fake leather here on the Club. The Sport doesn't have that. You also don't have the paint matched dorsals right here. And right here, Steve actually has a custom-built little phone holder so it doesn't slide around. That was pretty nifty, but if you guys want the magnetic wireless charging mount that I have in my car, then you can find the link to that down in the description. There's also no track mode here, and we have the OEM steering wheel. We also have the regular seats, not the Recaros, and they don't have any speakers in the headrest. And the actual car only has 2 speakers, so that's probably part of your weight savings as well, right? This car actually has more steering feedback than my car. And that's going to come down to a few variables. Number one, RE71 RS tires have much stiffer sidewalls. Even though they are taller, they are stiffer still. And also the wheel here is a harder material, whereas mine has a little bit of cushion to it, and that little bit of cushion dampens some of the feedback. Both have excellent mid-corner weighting though, which I love. It's nice you can hear the engine a bit more here than in my car. That actually bothers me because on track, you can't hear it at all. You can definitely feel the sway bar making the front end a little bit more flat, a little bit more responsive, but the rest of the suspension is really quite floaty. Remember, we don't have the Bilstein dampers here. I'm still feeling a lot of body roll, especially at the back. It's interesting, it does feel like a Band-Aid, because the front end feels a little bit sharper, but I'm still getting this floatiness and this moment it takes to set. And then there's like a mismatch between the front and the rear. It's interesting though. I see why people do it, because the front end is definitely more responsive, substantially sharper than stock. The ride is more comfortable. My Technas are stiffer spring rates. But here, as I'm mid-corner and I feel these bumps, you can tell it is a compromise over stock suspension. Let's give you a pull. Same engine, same power output, just a different exhaust. Let me know what you guys think about the sound with a comment below. God, I love the inputs in these Miatas. They're just so natural. You know, the brakes actually feel better in this car than in mine because, again, my brake fluid needs to be replaced. Normally, the brakes in my car would feel a bit firmer, a bit more confidence-inspiring, but I wouldn't say that's the case right now. The weight difference, which is minor, you can't really feel. They're essentially the same. It's only 30-pound difference. But this here is my favorite section because it's low speed. You can really push the car, but there's no rotation because we have the open diff. You're not getting that throttle-induced little bit of rotation at the back. Now, that's not to say that if the one other thing I want to point out about the seats is how these are actually far more comfortable if you're tall. And let me tell you why. The seat back here, there's a little bit of curvature for your thoracic spine, right? Your thoracic spine is like your mid-back, and it curves like this. And then your lumbar curves the opposite way. That's why you have the opposite curvature. But in the Recaro, it's far more aggressive. So you have more thoracic curvature, more lumbar curvature. And if you're taller, the thoracic curvature is too low on your body. So it actually causes mid-back pain, which is very unpleasant. I drove the car like on a road trip before, several hours, and it was very, very painful, very unpleasant. However, the trade-off is that you obviously don't get the same level of bolstering. So you're sliding around more in the seat, but the actual comfort of these seats is better than the Recaros. And keep in mind, in the Recaros, I lowered the seat brackets, right, by 2.25 inches thanks to Jass seat lowering brackets, and I raised the seat back to get that thoracic curvature more in line. You do feel quite a bit lower in that car, number one, because of the seat lowering bracket, and number two, the car also just sits a lot lower with my coilovers. This is on the stock ride height. But the Sport does make sense if you're really just trying to track and you're going to modify these things yourself. Like if you're going to go get an aftermarket LSD anyways, if you're going to upgrade your brakes, etc., then it makes sense to get the cheapest Miata. You don't need heated seats. Like the Sport doesn't have heated seats. You don't need that. Like it's, even in my car, I wouldn't mind if it didn't have it. It's not a big deal. A convertible is usually a fair weather car, so I'm not driving it in the snow and such, and therefore heated seats are just a nice to have, not a need to have. And whatever money you save by going with this, then means more money for mods. So I went with the BBR, and now I've already replaced the wheels, so I don't even have the BBS wheels anymore. The Recaros I had to modify so that they worked for me, although now I'm considering getting proper buckets for track work. And the Brembos, they're great. It only changes the front caliper, not even the rotor, just the front caliper. And you can also do aftermarket brakes yourself. So trade-offs here, there's no wrong answer, but the beautiful thing about the Miata is that you have options and you can really tailor the kind of driving experience and ownership experience you want based on your use case and based on your budget. I do think that the ND3 though offers unique advantages over prior generations, especially the steering. Now, if you don't care much about steering, then fuck it, get an ND2 instead. Don't get the ND1 because the ND1 had a worse engine, worse transmission. Transmission had reliability issues and the engine doesn't rev quite as high. So this one revs higher, makes more power. It's a more special engine, at least comparatively speaking. Now, I was chatting with my buddy. He was mentioning, he's like, well, I feel like the steering in the ND3s doesn't really have much feedback, and it's more the mid-corner weighting that he notices. And what I told him, and what I'd say to other drivers as well, is every car has like a different floor as to where the minimum level of signal is, like the amplitude of the signal. A Lotus Elise is like yelling at you with the steering. A 997.2 GT3 is talking to you, and this one is kind of whispering to you. So you just have to set your threshold a bit lower and acknowledge that you're going to feel smaller pieces of information. It's not going to be volume high, it's going to be volume on the lower end, and then you're actually going to feel a lot of road texture. And that's what I love about the ND3. You get a lot of that communication and that mid-corner load up. It's not going to be, again, Lotus Elise. It's there, it just at a lower volume. But there you have it. 35K versus 44K. Also different use cases. You know, I spent close to $2,000 just on getting a roll bar for my car to make it safe on track, and the owner Steve doesn't track this. So keep that in mind. Having an open diff versus an LSD, you will notice a difference as you push the car on street, but it's going to be a much more noticeable difference when you're on track. And some people are not going to mind having an open diff on street. Again, you can't go wrong with either the Club, the Sport, or the top trim, the Grand Touring. And there you even get climate control, which is very nice, and you get a thicker soft top such that there's greater insulation. It's actually very noticeable. You can watch my other videos with the GT. Way less road noise when you're on the highway. Does add a little bit of weight, but really improves the NVH. My friends, let me know what you would get. Would you go Club, Sport, or Grand Touring? Big shout out to the owner, Steven, for letting me review his ND3. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on jabalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.